Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to challenge a geographical stereotype that, honestly, almost everyone holds. When you close your eyes and picture the African continent, what's the very first thing you see? Are you picturing vast, sun-baked savannas, shimmering desert dunes, maybe sweltering tropical rainforests? Well, today, we are exploring a totally different side of the continent, one that rarely makes it into the standard travel brochures. We are looking at Africa's unexpectedly freezing climates, diving into the actual data and geography behind 10 countries that boast genuinely chilling temperatures.
So let's just tackle the elephant in the room right away. Is Africa always a place of constant heat? Look, it's a completely fair assumption to make. Given its location, straddling the equator and housing the world's largest hot desert, it is incredibly easy to view the continent as just one giant, uniformly scorching landmass. But treating a landmass as massive and geographically diverse as Africa like a monolith, that's a huge mistake. The real picture is far more complex, and frankly, a whole lot more fascinating.
There is this massive gap between what we imagine and what the climate data actually shows us. The widespread perception is this myth of endless tropical heat. But the reality? We're talking freezing temperatures, actual winter snowfall, and chilly climates spanning across at least 10 incredibly diverse countries. From towering plateaus to Mediterranean coastlines, we're going to see how elevation and geography completely override latitude, bringing frost and snow to places you would literally never expect.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the high-altitude deep freezes.
We are starting with the true altitude kings of the continent, Lesotho, Ethiopia, and South Africa. What unites these three distinct nations is their absolutely dramatic topography. We aren't just talking about a few rolling hills here, we are talking about towering plateaus and massive mountain ranges that physically thrust the land way up into the colder layers of the atmosphere. This creates climates that feel entirely disconnected from the tropical plains down below.
Check out this number, 0 degrees Fahrenheit. That is minus 17.8 degrees Celsius. This is the jaw-dropping extreme winter low we see in Lesotho, which is widely regarded as Africa's coldest country. And the reason why is pretty simple. The entire country sits at incredibly high altitudes. Some areas of this mountainous kingdom rise well above 3,000 meters. Because of this extreme elevation, Lesotho doesn't just get a little chilly. It experiences regular winter snowfall, especially across its sprawling highland regions. It's a literal winter wonderland right in the middle of southern Africa.
Now, let's swing over to Ethiopia and see how this builds our understanding of altitude. Ethiopia is one of Africa's most prominent highland countries, featuring vast areas located thousands of meters above sea level. All this elevated terrain gives the country a beautifully cool climate. In some of these highland areas, temperatures can actually drop down to a very crisp 41 degrees Fahrenheit or 5 degrees Celsius. Because of this, its capital, Addis Ababa, is actually one of the highest and mildest capital cities anywhere on the continent. Who knew, right?
And then there's South Africa, which honestly gives you total climate whiplash. Because of its massive size and varied terrain, it has an incredibly wide range of climates. In the summer, you can easily experience highs soaring well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But those winter lows, in the country's interior and mountainous regions, the mercury can plummet to around 3.2 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 16 degrees Celsius. If you head to elevated regions like the famous Drakensberg Mountains, you'll even find recorded snowfall. It is truly a land of extreme contrasts.
Moving right along to Section 2, freezing near the equator.
This brings us to something that feels like a geographical impossibility, what I like to call the equatorial paradox. We're looking at Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. These are countries located right on or right next to the Earth's equator. That's the exact zone that receives the most direct sunlight on the planet. Logic tells us these places should be sweltering year-round, but, as you'll see, sheer altitude acts like a giant natural air conditioner, completely overriding that standard equatorial heat.
Yep, there is that exact same number again, 0 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 17.8 degrees Celsius, the exact freezing mark we saw in Lesotho. But this time it's happening in Kenya. Kenya's climate varies wildly, from its tropical coastal lowlands all the way up to its towering highlands. Up in those high-altitude spots, the temperatures completely plummet, especially at night and during the cooler months. This is exactly why the capital Nairobi, which is situated high up in the highlands, enjoys weather that is dramatically cooler than the balmy tropical coast.
So it's all about these massive geographic giants creating their own isolated weather systems or microclimates. In Tanzania, the regions around the towering Mount Kilimanjaro experience much lower temperatures than the surrounding tropical lowlands, averaging between 59 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a similar story in Uganda. Its location right near the equator screams heat, but thanks to features like the Wenzori Mountains, the climate is heavily moderated, with temperatures frequently dropping down to a very cool 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. They basically hijack the local weather.
And honestly, nowhere is this equatorial paradox more visually striking than in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. When people hear DRC, they almost universally picture extensive, sweltering tropical rainforests, and while those absolutely exist, that heat directly contrasts with the DRC's eastern highlands. Because the country is just so enormously huge and varied. Those elevated eastern regions boast a much cooler climate, dropping down to around 50 degrees Fahrenheit at night. It's a remarkably sharp regional difference to find inside a single set of borders.
All right, let's shift gears entirely for Section 3, Northern and Mediterranean extremes.
For this final grouping, we're heading all the way up to the northern edge of the continent to look at Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. Up here, the driving forces of the cold are quite a bit different. Instead of just high equatorial plateaus, we're dealing with northern geographical positioning, the cooling influence of the Mediterranean Sea, and this incredible, fierce clash where massive mountain ranges rise up directly beside giant, scorching deserts.
Take Morocco, for example. It boasts one of the most unpredictable, varied climates you'll ever see. On one hand, parts of the country stretch right into the Sahara, delivering intense, baking heat. But just a short distance away, the mighty Atlas Mountains get exceptionally cold during winter. Temperatures up there can drop to about 17 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 8.3 degrees Celsius, and higher elevations get regular snow. This means you could literally sweat in the intense desert heat and then go have a snowball fight on the exact same trip. How cool was that?
And right next door, Algeria has a remarkably similar dynamic going on. Geographically, Algeria contains a huge portion of the Sahara Desert, but its northern regions enjoy a Mediterranean climate, and its mountainous areas swing straight into freezing territory. During winter, especially in the Atlas Mountains, temperatures fall significantly, bringing very cold, snowy conditions. The climate spans from absolute intense desert extremes straight into deeply chilled, mountainous environments. Finally, let's look at Tunisia. Here, we see winter lows hitting around 43 degrees Fahrenheit or 6 degrees Celsius. Tunisia doesn't rely as heavily on towering mountains for its cold. Instead, it's driven by its northern, inland location and a really strong Mediterranean climate. This combination gives Tunisia notably cooler winters than many countries located further south on the continent. When those colder periods roll in, northern and inland areas of the country feel decidedly brisk and chilly.
So let's pull all of this incredible data together in our final section, Rethinking African Climates. I absolutely love this quote because it hits the nail right on the head for our main takeaway today. The coldest countries in Africa may challenge the common perception of the continent as a place of constant heat. From the snow-dusted peaks of the Drakensberg in South Africa all the way to the freezing winter winds of the Atlas Mountains in Morocco and Algeria, we've seen how Africa's incredibly diverse terrain completely rewrites our assumptions. Altitude, Mediterranean currents, and vast mountain ranges prove that Africa is absolutely not a monolith of heat. It is a continent of spectacular climatic diversity.
Which leaves us with a pretty fun question to think about. Knowing all this, knowing that you might actually need to pack a thick winter coat for a trip to Lesotho, or that you could plan a ski trip in the Atlas Mountains, or seek a crisp, cool retreat in the highlands of Kenya or Ethiopia, how does this change your bucket list for exploring the African continent? I really hope this explainer sparked your curiosity to look past the usual stereotypes, embrace these chilling facts, and maybe imagine a totally different kind of adventure. Thank you so much for exploring these freezing geographical wonders with me today.